Hello, friends, and welcome to our 26th Dissipation of Glamour Initiative broadcast. We are working on the intuition, at least on DK's discussion of the meaning of the intuition, so I'm interpolating a little bit from the earlier pages of Glamour, a World Problem. And I will be, using different parts of the book in order to enhance the section that we are studying. It's really a fantastic part of the book, and it clarifies so many things. Last week, we dealt with the initial description of the intuition, and then this time, after a brief alignment, we're going to take up the idea of illumination, understanding, and love. We are in that section of the techniques where we're dealing with the technique of the presence. We've already dealt with the, at least superficially or perhaps somewhat adequately, with the technique of light, which we are always using in the particular formula which Master DK has given to us. But now we're looking at that which even lies behind the technique of light and relates to the presence itself. And as we well realize, this presence is the deity within us. It's the factor of pure being, which we are. We can call it the monad, but we have to be careful because really it's the very heart of the monad, the very centrality of that structure. We call the monad on the second subplane of the cosmic physical plane. So it is something that we share with everything. The fact that there is a perception that something is, that it exists, means that there is a sharing with all of those existent factors of this one common denominator, which we can call being, isness. And when we begin to realize the isness that we are, and the isness that all things are, all perceivables, then we realize that quality, though vastly important in the hierarchical structure of universe, and vastly important in terms of fulfilling the divine plan and eventually executing the divine purpose, that those qualitative factors are secondary to the presence, which is the same for all things. It is the isness of all things, and this is the shared something which we have to realize when we put all distinction aside. So we're dealing with the technique of the presence, and I took a little detour because there was so much emphasis upon the intuition that I figured we could use some very good definitions of the intuition. And DK has given them. I'd just like to, I know other people will be joining us along the way, but just to welcome you, Alex, Annette, Bio, Carl, Catherine, Debo, Deborah, Francois, Helen, Jan, Jean, Joan, John, Yoke, Karen, Lori, Margot, Marianne, Martha, Michael, Myrna, and let's see. I better look at that closer. Natnia, it looks like, Natnia, hope I'm correct, Chalker, and Rebecca, and Stephanie, and Suzanne, Tiu, and Tuija. You're usually on staff, but here you are. It's easier to reach you this way. Winnie, Yvonne, and Zach. So, and of course, we're backed up here by BL, Brett, and Joe, and myself who are on staff. So I know others will be joining us as we go along, but I just want to welcome you and say how much I appreciate your presence in this study and in these meditative efforts to help clarify the consciousness of humanity. And of course, our own. As we go along, we cannot help but clarify our own consciousness. Very important if we're going to be of any use to the people who, in general, are very much caught in the thraldom of Maya, glamour, and illusion. It's a long battle. It's going to take hundreds of years. Even during the Aquarian Age, there will not be a banishing of these three factors. The so-called three-headed dog, Kerberos, holding us into the lower worlds, glamour, illusion, and Maya. But we will achieve much, and there will be a clarification of consciousness. All kinds of things are rising to the surface under the influence of Pluto at the present time. Now, Pluto is active in all the initiations. It's a non-sacred, though esoteric planet, interestingly, and active in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth initiations, especially, interestingly, at the fifth initiation. And as far as humanity is concerned, it's dragging everything buried in the subconscious of humanity up to be seen and remedied, because there are so many unworthy things, so much unfinished business that we haven't taken care of. And we can't take care of it if it's hidden from us. And Pluto is showing us the very worst that is buried in humanity this time. But before the reappearance of the Christ, before the first initiation, those two things occurring simultaneously, we have to have the influence of Pluto and Vulcan bringing in the spiritual will, the will of the soul, which places us all as personalities under tremendous pressure. Pressure from above, pressure from within, and this is a pressure which we have to learn how to withstand. Somewhere, is it in the Agni Yoga books, maybe it is said pressure is the law of existence. So we're being submitted to that, and I haven't the slightest idea what this thing is appearing here. All right. The law of existence, and we have to learn how to be strong enough within our personal nature to accept the pressure of the soul as it seeks to heal and cleanse and illumine the personality which is the victim of these three factors which prevent us from seeing reality, thinking reality, acting in terms of reality. And that's our job, to try to clarify this very messy situation. I'm always amused. Master DK calls Maya by these words. This is a quote: that unthinking emotional mess. That unthinking emotional mess. That's how he deems the idea of Maya, that we act without knowing what we're doing, and we're driven by irrational emotion, and we make a mess of it. So there's so much going on in the human psyche at the moment which demands a real clarification and upliftment into a more spiritual state. And that's what groups such as ours are attempting to undertake. So let's, we're scattered on different continents, but mostly I would say Europe, the Americas, and Australasia. And we think of ourselves as workers responding to soul impulse, and responding also to the will and direction of the ashram, and especially the greater ashram of which the Lord Maitreya, the Christ, is the head. And although we might not see the results immediately, we have the faith that studying what the Master has given us and using the formulas which he has provided will make a difference not only in the usefulness of our own lives, but within the psyche of humanity itself. So voluntarily we are coming together as those who aspire, as those who seek discipleship training. And we offer ourselves to the process so that we may add some little bit of light to the very dense situation, dense and dangerous situation existing on the astral plane, and also working out in unwise action and impulsed by illusory thought. We're going to bring some light into this. And this is our purpose. And as we hang in there over the months and even years, we will be effective in helping to bring the expression of the divine plan to humanity. We can't work in all areas at once, of course. There are 7 ashramic areas and many subsidiary areas, and we can't spread ourselves too thin, you know. Otherwise we will not be effective, but we can be effective following up some of the advice which Master DK has given us. So let's just together with sound the great invocation. I hope that all of us are somehow in our triangles and in whatever other work we do using this invocation at least once a day. The Master tells us it will create profound changes in the life of anyone who uses it with sincerity and regularity. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out. and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you. I always remember that Master DK has told us that the use of this great invocation is one of the major methods of preparing for the reappearance of the Christ. And really our most powerful instrument in that preparation. We're in the final years of the Forerunner, maybe 8.5 years now, looking forward to the Waisak time of 2025, when the great conclave of hierarchy takes place, centennially every 100 years. And he tells us that in all probability the first real plans will be laid for the first stages of the actual externalization of the hierarchy. So we are living in momentous times, and although the momentousness of these times is subjective and unnoticed by the world, perhaps we have to realize how very real is the issue we're dealing with, the externalization of the hierarchy and the reappearance of the Christ, and the redemption of humanity to a very great extent during the Aquarian Age. And for all this, we are preparing. Now, let's see if I can... Yeah, okay. So we had reached the discussion of the three factors of the intuition. Just to repeat a couple of things, about the intuition, because he tells us it's not what we normally think it is. If we are psychic, if we see a vision, if we hear the voice of the silence, if we have a sense of pleasure when we read the teaching, it's not inferring the functioning of the intuition. Not really. It's something much more. It's not seeing symbols. It's not intelligent psychology. It's so many really important things that it is not. I mean, that's not to take away from the importance of these factors. Intuition is the synthetic understanding. Think about those words. A vast, comprehensive understanding while realizing the synthesis that is. Intuition is the synthetic understanding which is the prerogative of the soul. So we have to be in soul consciousness to have anything like what he describes as the intuition. And it only becomes possible when the soul, on its own level, is reaching in two directions, towards the monad and towards the integrated and perhaps, even if only temporarily, coordinated and at one personality. It's the first indication of the deeply subjective unification which will find its consummation at the third initiation. And so we begin to realize there are so many things that we have to begin preparing for around the period of the second initiation, and during that period which takes us from the second to the third. We are realizing more the reality of Sanat Kumara. We're realizing more the nature of identification, and the true intuition can be prepared for. It's kind of interesting. The second degree involves, in a sense, the overcoming of one of the aspects of Mars. It's a sixth-ray planet to a certain extent, and it's overcome by Neptune, the lower and higher solar plexus respectively, and Neptune reaches towards the heart. Well, Neptune is also the planet of the Buddhic plane and the planet of intuition, taking us all the way to the monadic plane and even to the cosmic astral plane. So we're entering the realm of a higher type of Neptune as we begin to understand and receive the nature of the intuition via the building of the Antakarana. Of course, other planets are involved as well, Mercury and Jupiter, of course, in this Buddhic realization. Intuition is a comprehensive grip of the principle of universality. The Aquarian age is the age of universality, and Neptune and Uranus, granting that realization of universality, are very prominent in the hierarchical rulership of Aquarius. So a comprehensive grip of the principle of universality. So often we are involved in thinking of our little ring past nod and maybe a little bit larger ring past nod, you know, but this is the whole solar system we're talking about here. And eventually, of course, if we follow out the implications of these words, universality, it's the whole universe. Of course, it's way, way beyond us. We can't fathom that. We can't fathom the galaxy, not in any psychological sense, although the masters have marked out the psychological nature of the different galaxies. But let's just say it'll take us into the realm of the Solar Logos, and certainly we will begin to have a truly planetarized consciousness. So a comprehensive grip of the principle of universality, and when it's really functioning, complete loss of the sense of separateness. Just think of what that could mean. We use these words glibly. Sometimes we're so used to saying them, but what is it really like when your heart is open, the heart and the head is open, and everything is fused and blended and one? We all have to strive towards that. Part of us is already there, of course, in multidimensional consciousness, but the part that we're responsible for right here in terms of our personality expression doesn't realize that yet. Universal love, which has no relation to sentiment or to affectional reaction. It's not liking and disliking. That really has to be overcome. Rule 11, study Rule 11, the beginning, the forward of Rule 11 in the raised and initiations, and we will see how these sentimental responses of liking and disliking are one of the primary eliminations before we can really enter into the consciousness of the causal body. Universal love. Maybe the monad knows something of that universal love. Identification with all beings. And that's whether we like them or not. It can be a little puppy or it can be a shark. It can be a tiger or a lamb, as Blake pointed out. But somehow we find the isness of all beings, whether we like or dislike, whether dangerous or attractive, to register the isness of anything is to identify as it. Then is true compassion known, not just sentimentality. Then does criticism become impossible. Imagine that. You know, some of us, we're students of the Tibetan, and we have a reputation for being mental and not compassionate. This is how a lot of different groups see the Bailey students. Of course, it's not correct, but anyway, true compassion. And it comes out of identification with all beings. And then only is the divine germ seen as latent in all forms. The divinity of everything you can possibly perceive or see. It's all one thing, or as in the Divine Commander, the only one thing, which has its roots in the great thinker Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great Hermes, probably, very connected with the Master R at this point. Anyway, it's worth studying this. Essential relationship is established, and all sense of superiority and separateness recedes into the background. Okay? So these are very, very big issues, and they lie underneath all of the studies that we may pursue. We can have great knowledge, mental accumulations, and all the rest of it, but without this revelation, which only the open heart and heart in the head can give, only the open soul, the fully flowering soul, then, like St. Paul says, it's all a lot of brass. It's sounding brass. You can have everything. You can have everything, but if you don't have love, which is profoundly related to the true nature of intuition, then other things are inconsequential. So that's why the Christ is the great teacher of hierarchy and humanity, because he has this, he is this. And we have to learn how to have the fundamental in which all of these acquisitions really become useful and not traps which can make us proud of a very little bit of accumulation. Really, even the whole vast universe is just the tiniest thing compared to the ultimate reality. So we need a sense of perspective here, a sense of proportion, and that's going to go a long way towards ridding ourselves of the glamours which swirl around the egocentric person. And we're all, until the fourth initiation, we're all to a degree egocentric. But if we can get rid of that sense of being the central factor within our field of perception, we're on our way towards seeing things as they really are. Now here, intuition, he tells us, going forward, brings with its appearance three qualities. So let's read this and take this all to heart and see what it means to us. I'll do this. Okay. Excuse me, just a little water here to keep the voice going. Illumination. By illumination, I do not mean the light in the head. The light in the head is phenomenal. It is an appearance. It is an indication of something noumenal, greater behind it. And he said, there are certain types of people who have the light in the head, but they don't even register it. It's just a question of the quality of the brain cells. But in a treatise on white magic, much is made of this gradual appearance of the light of the head, which means that the soul power is descending into the area of the brain, or etheric brain, around the pineal gland, and a radiance begins to appear, and eventually that diffused radiance becomes like a brilliant sun. So by illumination, I do not mean the light in the head. This is incidental and phenomenal. And many truly intuitive people are entirely unaware of this light. Perhaps it depends upon the ray, the ray of the brain and our general ray structure, and whether we're very focused in the phenomenal world. The light of illumination, to which I refer, is that which irradiates the way. Now, what is the way, after all? The way is eventually the way of higher evolution. It's not only the path, it's the way, and it leads from this solar system, well, from our planet anyway, to other planets for training, and eventually leads to great starry systems, and eventually leads to the Pleiades themselves, which are the hub and destination of all of us in the relatively short term. You know, it's not the end, but in terms of our local cosmos system, the way of high revolution leads to the central cluster we know as the Pleiades. We have an amazing destiny if we could just free ourselves from the traps which lesser consciousness imposes upon us. So the light to which I refer is that which irradiates the way. It is the light of the intellect. And here he's meaning intellect maybe in a larger sense, which really means that which illumines the mind and which can reflect itself in the mental apparatus which is held steady in the light. Now, sometimes the word intellect in the Neoplatonic system, intellect can relate directly to the light of the intuition. You know, it's being able to be within something and not just look at it objectively, but actually to know something from the inside out. This is the light of the world. Remember that Christ said that, I am the light of the world. The Buddha also, I am the light of the world. And just think for a moment what it would be like to identify not with the usual appearances, but actually to withdraw and identify oneself as this all-pervading, revealing light. I suggest, you know, that we may want to have little reflections and meditations about what it would be like to be the light of the world, the love of the world, and the will of the world. Light, love, and will. And more truly, we are those great pervasive factors than we are sort of the lesser form life with which we have come to identify. So this light, the light of illumination, is the light of the world, a reality which is eternally existent, but which can be discovered only when the individual interior light is recognized as such. In that light, the individual interior light, we shall see light, the greater light. And of course, the whole universe is light. The universe is condensed, precipitated light. Light is substantial. And all the variety we see around us on every plane can be reconverted into its original light substratum out of which it arose. So this is the light of the ages which shineth evermore until the day be with us. Well, what's the day be with us? It is the end of the universe in a way, but it's also the end of any system. It's also the fourth initiation in a way, when the light of day and the full nature of the Buddhic plane, or a great nature of it, is revealed to us because we are dropping the causal body and are then focused in consciousness upon, within the spiritual triad and upon the Buddhic plane. So that is the real immediate day be with us, but every great being has its own day be with us when it is absorbed into its higher prototype. So every planetary deity has its day be with us, and so it will be with our solar deity and the cosmic deities, and on and on and on, until the one universal day be with us is experienced, and the universe disappears again for the infiniteth time, even though you can't really say that, but it disappears only to be outbreathed again. So every disappearance of a system into its greater prototype is a day be with us. And it's so interesting to me, that Scorpio, which rules the Buddhic plane in a certain sense and rules all of humanity, has a certain type of light connected with us, and it's called the light of day. The intuition is therefore recognized in oneself, not theoretically, but as a fact in one's experience of one's complete identification with the universal mind, of one's constituting a part of the great world life, a part of that. Our identity is not separate from that. We have no isolated individuality, really. And of one's participation in the eternal, persisting existence, the one being. Now, all of these things are nice, as DK says, nice euphonious words, but our job is to make them real in our realization. Now, true realization occurs on the atmic plane on the 5th level, so that's probably beyond us to a degree. But increasingly we move towards the realization, which will allow us to see our sameness with universal mind. Where's that found? Well, it's found on very many levels. It begins with the atmic plane, in my view, and goes up to the cosmic mental plane and on and on. It is the mind of the solar logos. But if we really want to take that word universal to what it can mean, it goes way beyond that. But anyway, the causal body of the solar logos is found on the cosmic mental plane. And then perhaps for practical purposes and in terms of the scope that we can achieve, we can think about the universal mind as being the cosmic mental plane. And then we are one with our planetary life and beyond, and then there's the great eternal persisting existence, which is the only one being. Now, these are the great ideas of philosophy, but until they are real to us, we're not going to do any better than state them as platitudes. So we have a lot of work to do. Illumination, then, is a great factor, meaning much more than we normally thought. The light of the ages, the light of the world, the substance of all things. Light is tangible. We have to begin to realize the light value of anything we see. Then, the next factor is understanding. It's such a Piscean term, it involves the feet and abstraction and standing under. 3 qualities have come in. The light has come in and understanding has come in. This must be appreciated in its literal sense as that which stands under the totality of forms. Forms are, in a way, an objective external and are not essential. Objective external, or externalizing. All that we see is the Maya, the great creativity of the one being in potentially infinitudinous forms, but the forms have no inherent being of their own. They are all derivative of the one being and the one substance. So, we're there, we witness, we observe, but we recognize the Maya, of the many ever-changing forms. And we recognize that in a way we are something else. Of course, eventually, there's no something else, there's only what is. So even what seemed to be something else is eventually reclaimed as what is. It connotes the power of recession, standing back, or the capacity to withdraw from one's age-long identification with form life. And when we're thinking about life, we just say, neti, neti, you know? Not this, not that. So, well, maybe I should not even capitalize those, maybe like that. Not this, not that. And whatever we see, whatever we register, we know it's a kind of objectivity in the first sense, and that we are not really that. Of course, ultimately we are, but at first we have to separate ourselves from every possible formal perception. The power of recession, or the capacity to withdraw from one's age-long identification with form life. I would like to point out that this withdrawal is comparatively easy for those who have much of the first-rate quality in them. The problem is to withdraw in the esoteric sense, see, without sacrificing certain things that are necessary, but to avoid at the same time the sense of separateness, of isolation, and superiority. One withdraws from that which one will eventually reclaim as oneself. And that's the trick. So one at first withdraws from that with which one will eventually re-identify. So it's easy for first-rate people to resist the tendency to identify themselves with others. They really have to learn that. It's a gift, particularly of the second-rate. And we know that first-rate people need second-rate qualities, and second-rate people need first-rate qualities. To have true understanding involves an increased ability to love all beings, and yet, at the same time, to preserve personality detachment. We are one with all beings on the level of being, but not on the level of formal division. This detachment can be so easily founded on an inability to love, in a selfish concern for one's own comfort, physical, mental, or spiritual, and above all, emotional, like I don't want to get involved. This is an interesting thought, you know, and you have to test it out in yourselves. This is DK's perception of it. First-rate people dread emotion and despise it. But sometimes they have to swing into an emotional condition before they can use emotional sensitivity in the right manner. So if you have a lot of first-rate or first-rate souls, see if this is true of you and see where you stand. Understanding involves contact with life as an integrated personality plus egoic reaction to the group purposes and plans. It connotes personality-soul unification, so you really have to be an integrated soul personality, a soul-infused personality, before this is possible. It connotes personality-soul unification, wide experience, and a rapid ability and a rapid activity of the indwelling Christ principle. It's a very second-rate kind of thing here. Intuitional understanding is always spontaneous. Where the reasoning to an understanding enters, it is not the activity of the intuition. You know how immediate intuition can be, like a flash of lightning, you just know. Now, reasoning is good. Reasoning gets us to a form of light, but where we're slowly, sequentially trying to figure something out as to what it is, this is not the flash of immediate, direct knowledge, in the words of Master Morya. So, okay, so that's what he has to say about understanding. understanding. And obviously, we could take each of these terms, illumination, understanding, into our meditation for a long time and try to cultivate them and see if to any extent we possess them. Excuse me. Now, and at last, we come to the factor of love. Very important in our second ray solar system, in which our solar logos is a heart center in a cosmic logos 7 times greater than he is. Our local cosmic logos, known as the 7 solar systems, of which ours is one. Love. As earlier said, this is not affectionate sentiment, liking, or the possession of a loving disposition. These are important, of course. These 2 later aspects are incidental and sequential. Okay, so they do develop, but that is not what he means by love. When the intuition is developed, both affection and the possession of a spirit of loving outgo will necessarily, in their pure form, okay, because obviously these things can be corrupted as well, will necessarily, and in their pure form, be demonstrated. But that which produces these is something more deep and comprehensive. Okay. It's the real love that produces this affection and this loving outgo. It is that, this is so wonderful. It is that synthetic, inclusive grasp of life and the needs of all beings. I have chosen these 2 words with intent, which is the high prerogative of a divine Son of God, which it is the high prerogative of a divine Son of God to operate. It's interesting wording. I'm going to read it again, underline it. It is that synthetic, inclusive grasp of life and the needs of all beings. That true psychism is based upon the realization of the needs of all beings. It's a very high psychic ability. He tells us, I have chosen these 2 words with intent, which it is the high prerogative of a divine Son of God to operate. It negates all that builds barriers, makes criticism, and produces separation. I just think of us, in the esoteric field and all of our work with each other over the years, and I think if we could only absorb the import of what is said here. It sees no distinction, even when it appreciates need, and it produces in one who loves, as a soul, immediate identification with that which is loved. And when I think of how Master D.K. wrote his letters to his students, he really had this, in my view anyway, this synthetic inclusive grasp of the needs of his students. So, I just recommend to you and to myself and to all of us that we really ponder on these 3 factors which relate to the intuition and which demonstrate when the true intuition is demonstrating. Illumination, understanding, and love. And of course, obviously, the heart center, the heart and the head, these must be activated. The higher influences of Venus, of Jupiter, of Neptune, interestingly enough, 3 planets which have a lot to do with the second initiation, and then, of course, higher correspondences, they must be activated. Really, the higher parts of all the different planets participate in this true intuition, working out as love, understanding, and illumination. These 3 words, he says, sum up the 3 qualities of the intuition and can be covered by the word universality. or the sense of universal oneness. Well, can we spend a little time each day cultivating this sense of the whole? The macrocosmic whole is all there is. DK tells us in Rule 5 of the Advanced Rules for Disciples and Initiates. The macrocosmic whole is all there is, the sense of universality, of universal oneness. Is this not something which all aspirants aim to achieve? And is it not something that each of you, as individuals, needs in a peculiar sense? Of course we do. Of course we do. Where it is present, there is an immediate decentralization of the dramatic I, of that capacity always to relate all happenings, all phenomena, all group work to oneself as the center. This is egoism. And we have to divest ourselves of egoism, and maybe, by the time the 4th degree is taken, we can be successful at that. He says, I cannot enlarge further upon the subject of intuition. It is too vast a matter and too abstruse. Well, goodness, he's given us material that's already abstruse. What more can it be? All I can do is put before you its 3 aspects and then urge upon you the need to submit to that training and to apply to yourselves that discipline which will work out in your life as love, light, and understanding. Okay, well, the challenge has been sounded. Love, light, and understanding. When the theory is grasped and the right adjustments are made, and when the needed work is done, the personality then becomes magnetic, whilst the brain cells around the pineal gland, which have hitherto been dormant, become awakened and vibrant. That's going to be, the light in the head, whether one realizes it or not. The nucleus of every cell in the body is a point of light. And when the light of the intuition is sensed, it is this cell light which will immediately respond. We're told Buddhi is at the heart of every atom in our solar system. The continuance of the inflow of the light of the intuition will draw forth, esoterically speaking, into the light of day every cell which is so constituted that it will respond. And we are cells in the great body of the planetary logos, and we are trying to fit ourselves to become cells which can rightly respond to the plan and purpose of our planetary logos by cultivating the intuition within ourselves which will register truly what that plan and purpose actually are. So these are profound matters. I realize I've talked on here a bit, and I'm just going to call this the end of doggy number 26 reading. And we will take up again, let's see, today is the 2nd. And let's see, from the, I think we meet again the 2nd, the 9th. Okay. On December 9th, and then this is 2 December 16, begin again 9 December 16. These are profound things, and we have to expose ourselves to them with seriousness, as if they were really, really important in our spiritual development, and with some measure of success as we cultivate these internal abilities, we will be more effective in helping others do the same and contribute to the lessening of glamour, illusion, and Maya in our world. So now what I'd like to do, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have things that you would like to deal with, if you write your questions, either I will see them or Brett will alert me to this, and if you want to speak, you just raise your hand, and we'll have a little session here, and I'll call on you. So, illumination, understanding, and love. The true expression of that vaster something called the intuition, which is really a synthetic understanding and a comprehensive grip of the principle of universality. Okay, friends, What would you like to say, ask, contribute, whatever? This is your opportunity. I'm always a little awestruck myself when I read the Tibetan's words. Every day I go along, I realize the greatness of the master mind, and it always seems greater and greater. The older I get, the greater and greater it seems. So, who are we to say anything? But then who are we not to say something? That's the only way we're ever going to learn. So, any thoughts? Any questions? Any comments? Maybe if I make these smaller, they can be under the eye at the same time, and then we'll have a little more ability to see what we've been dealing with. So I'll make them really small and hopefully not so small that it'll be, yeah, well, we're not going to see the whole thing. I can see that. But we'll see something. I'll make them really, number 7. Oh, that's small. All right. And number 6, it almost should be number 6 if I'm really going to, and I'm just trusting you'll be able to see something. So don't be shy. Just blunder in. That's what I've always done, and until I try understand something a little better. Okay. Anybody? Okay. Brett, do you see anybody I don't see?
Not at this point.
Okay, right. Excuse me. What can I say, friends? Cultivate these things. I always say to myself, I never do enough. But cultivate the vision of whatever you consider to be the wholeness. It's what's called occult identification. It's not mystic duality. It's not I am yearning for this. This is greater than I. It's somehow a merging of one's identity with all perceivables, I call them that, all perceivables within the wholeness. The macrocosmic whole is all there is. And then, we will overcome. That's what we're always working on, right? We will overcome gradually, let's be humble about it, the great heresy of separateness or separativeness, either way. Because everything appears different from everything else, and yet there's this substratum of identicality through isness. And that's why I say, in our other group along these lines, identify as being group, isness is I-ness, I say. And of course, one could ponder on that. Isness is I-ness. And once we can no longer escape the great and ever-present I-ness, which is infinite, it's not anything localized, then we are merged in being, as being. And it becomes the major fact of our lives, not just a vague theory while we work in the realm of relativity. Of course, we have huge work to do in the realm of relativity, of course, in order to make the divine plan emerge as it should. But behind it all, just like in, Indian music, there's always that pedal tone. No matter what kind of activity is going on, the pedal tone stays the same. Just like in the Sanskrit language, all the letters descend from this bar, this continuous bar, which represents the fundamental of being. So we are being itself. And all the variety takes on real meaning and significance when it is related to this substratum of beingness. So, I advise us to somehow, every day, a little while, in all the variety of our lives, hold this in mind, the oneness, and be very inclusive, leave nothing out of it. Everything's in it. And ultimately, everything is the same thing, so that's the great mystery. Okay, well,
Michael?
Okay. I see a hand. Okay. Karen? Go ahead.
Yes. Michael?
Yeah.
I have a question, but it's not related
Yeah.
to today's reading.
Okay.
It's
Go ahead.
related, and that's why I was a little hesitant to ask.
Okay. It's okay.
But it's related to the Soul of Nations meditation as part of the Ask Project meditations.
Yeah.
And a number of times, and I've heard this said many times, that Christ is in a Syrian body in Syria.
Jesus.
What does that?
Jesus.
Jesus is in. Okay.
Syrian body. As a matter of fact, now, we don't know what kind of Maya Varupa the Christ actually has. If you listen to Leadbeater, he tells us that the Christ's external Maya Varupa is of a Celtic nature. And of course, since he is the great teacher for the fourth great dispensation related to Atlantis, it's culminating with the number 4. And if you look at Ireland, which is really the center of Celticness at this time, there's going to be a school there, and it's called the School of the Bodhisattva. And it is a very deep, advanced second-ray school. So certain things tie together with the idea of the Christ being related to this number 4 and to the kind of outward Celtic appearance. As for the Master Jesus, his work is very much in the Middle East, and I guess that in choosing a Maya Varupa is oftentimes made on the model of the body in which you took the 5th initiation, but maybe not always. And with Jesus, we have a very interesting thing, that he took the 5th initiation, in my view anyway, by taking over the body of one of his students, Apollonius of Tyana. And in that particular body, and I don't know of what nature it was, he took mastership. So again, just like we don't know when it was Christ and when it was Jesus in the Bible, he says one day the silver and gold threads will be disentangled. The same is true for Apollonius and Jesus. But we do know that Apollonius was involved in the Jesus phenomenon later when Jesus became a true master. And so it's very likely that there was a possession, a tulku, we call it Tulku, a tulku phenomenon occurring where the greater initiate steps into the body of the lesser initiate. Now, did Apollonius have a Syrian body, or did Jesus simply decide when making his own Maya Varupa to use that particular type of a form? And, I don't know how that would be done, but I imagine it could be done. So that's kind of my take on the outer form. Yeah.
So why in Syria?
Well,
and for what
this
purpose?
is interesting. One of the schools of the 14 schools is said to occur either in Syria or in Greece. Now we see what's happening in Syria right now, where the conflict of religions is incredibly intense, and it's all under the Master Jesus. Now, it is also said that the Battle of Armageddon will be fought out in Syria. So it seems to me that the presence of the Master Jesus, who includes Judaism, Christianity, and since Muhammad was his student, which of course, you know, that's going to be very hard for the people in Islam to accept, but okay, that's what DK tells us. Muhammad was the student of Master Jesus, so Islam is involved, that he would position himself right there at the heart of the conflict and work for the reconciliation of those faiths, all of which are now obsolete, says the Tibetan. But at least they have to stop killing each other in order to evolve into something greater. So I think he has positioned himself in a very critical place as far as the fate of humanity is concerned. That's why, to me, Syria.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay. We'll, you know, as students of the great ones in the next few hundred years, some of these mysteries will work themselves out. You know, he works in a triple manner. Jesus works, as a matter of fact, you know, it's very interesting. He said the Messiah of the Jews will not be the Christ. It will more likely be Jesus. Okay? So Jesus works with the Jews. He works with the Muslims. He works with the high prelates of the church. And what a job he has to somehow bring these three to the point where they can not hate each other and somehow make a reconciliation. I think he has positioned himself there exactly for that purpose. This is my take on the subject. Karen.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yes, Brett.
We have a written question from Rebecca.
A written question. Okay, a written question from, let's see. Okay, questions. Why can't I? Well, you're going to have to do this because for some reason my question, I can't. There it is. Okay. Tell me, what is the question, Brett?
Okay, then, I'm blundering in. Are there astrological and rheological correspondences to illumination, understanding, and love? For example, is Taurus related to illumination?
Yes.
For example.
Yes. And understanding to Pisces. And love is... and you know what's really interesting? DK had some material for a so-called disciples degree, and it was deep astrological stuff, and it's been released by the School for Esoteric Studies, and the implication there is that a lot of these world savior types had Pisces rising in their prevailing horoscope. Master KH, I believe the Sun in Gemini with Pisces rising. And the Christ, in my view, his astrology, the Sun in Libra with Pisces rising. And this is the one that really gets me. The Buddha, apparently, the Sun in Taurus with Pisces rising. Now, these are horoscopes over a long term. They're not having to do with a body which has been born or something of that nature. They are horoscopes that the masters work with. So I think understanding is very much related to Pisces, to identify with and yet stand back. Illumination, as you suggested, yes, keenly related to Taurus, both understanding and illumination being in the horoscope of the Buddha. When it comes to something like love, I would hate to localize it because it's of such a vast nature that I think it should be said that there are 12 varieties of love. Now, if you turn to page 660 in Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, you'll see a meditation on the heart center, where 11 of the 12 petals of the heart center are described in terms of their qualities. And of course, every 12-fold structure is related to the zodiac. Your heart center, your heart and the head, and also the egoic lotus, every one of those petals, there are 12, all related mostly to a particular sign. I've dealt with this in the book that I've, ebook that I've written on the subject. It's a dictated book, but I'm very grateful to a student who has come along and is transcribing the whole thing so it'll be readable shortly. And when you go to the heart and the head center of the great cosmic logos, the one about whom not may be said, every one of the constellations of the zodiac is one of those 12 petals in that heart and head center. So you're always going to have astrology there. But when it comes to love in our solar system, it's so inclusive that I wouldn't want to localize it as to one particular sign. Of course, you could say, well, look, DK says the second ray comes through Gemini, which is the head of the cosmic Christ. It comes through Virgo, where it is now the strongest, Virgo being a second and sixth ray sign, and it comes through Pisces, which is the love decanate of the, it's a cosmic decanate. And so Pisces is a sign profoundly filled with love, but I don't want to localize that. I will say that Taurus is tremendously associated with illumination, so is Mercury for that matter, so is Venus on a lesser scale, and Pisces with understanding. And I'll just stand back from the word love being too comprehensive for me to try to diminish it through localization. So good question, and thank you. Okay, are there other? Now let's see. Someone else. I think Tuija had her hand up.
Yes, we have.
Yeah,
two
is
more.
another? Two more. Okay, then I'll let Tuija speak. Okay, what are these other questions?
From Rebecca saying, comment, Philip Lindsay has an article about Syria in a recent newsletter on his website, Libra 2016 Part 2, Understanding the Agony of Syria. And there's a link
Philip
here
is an
for people.
excellent astrologer. Excellent. So maybe you can put that in, or did Rebecca send you the link?
Yes, it's there in the question.
Good. Philip's a great astrologer, and anything he has to say about these matters should be attended to carefully. He's also a world traveler, and he has a lot of international experience, so it's always worth reading Philip, for sure. Thank you, Rebecca. What else?
Then we have a comment from Jan saying, to apply ourselves with light, love, and understanding to the effort of finding intuition seems like it is a work of awareness and discipline of response. The response of these three things to everyday situations of relationship and environment and other experience that comes up in our lives. How else would we work with and apply these three qualities?
Well, I think you've been very insightful in the way that we must approach. I'm remembering this, Chan, is it?
Jan.
That Jan, okay. DK said the best way to love is to meditate upon love. Now, it may seem like, what does he mean? Well, obviously, in the deep meditation, the true nature of the quality is emerging. So the fundamental is to reflect upon and meditate upon these factors, to keep them in mind, and when we awaken to what we're doing, we simply ask ourselves, as we stand back and view our own actions and our thoughts, To what extent is this a light-filled experience that I'm approaching with love and understanding? So we have to play the part of the observer. We keep the things in mind. We know the subsidiary qualities of each one of these greater qualities, and we observe. And we attempt, knowing what we know about what they are, to infuse them into the situation in which we find ourselves. I don't think there's any one answer to such a question. I think it's practice. And I think, if you just stop yourself for a minute and you say, okay, look, in this situation, to what extent are light, love, and understanding present in my response, in my intake, then gradually the ability to apply will grow. But of course, meditation is key, and developing the antakarana is key because the antakarana connects immediately with the triadal realm where these factors exist in a relatively pure state. And when these energies descend into our system, they will be expressed. So the discipline of the antakarana is very, very necessary, and DK has given us the method of doing this, and of course we study this in the Moria Federation and in the Arcane School, and whoever takes seriously the kinds of academic disciplines that Master DK has laid out for us will be involved eventually in their meditative approach in building the antakarana. Thank you, Rebecca. Now I'm just going to, Tuija, please go ahead. There's been a lot going down, but there you are. Tuija? Just, you're on self-mute there. Hello, hello. Okay, her hand was up, wasn't it, Brett? I thought I saw it.
I don't know.
Okay, Tuija, are you there? You're still on self-mute, so just unmute yourself. I thought I saw your hand up
I
there.
did see her hand as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But then it went down.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bill. Maybe I talked too long. It might have been a comment on an earlier thing. Okay, well, Tuija, if for some reason you're on self-mute, so if you want to speak, just unmute yourself and just go ahead. Okay, friends.
We have a couple more comments from Depot.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
Man is the whole universe compressed. Unifying the light in the atoms of the body of man could lead the way. We rise by kneeling. Can you please comment?
Well, I think these are good thoughts. I mean, we rise by kneeling, of course. That's a sense of proportion. To kneel is always the symbol of humility, and according to DK, humility is an adjusted sense of right proportion. If we don't have proportion, we have glamour, illusion, and Maya, and all the things that prevent us from seeing reality. Man is the microcosm, of course. But when we work from the level of the soul, the unification of the light in all the lesser factors of man will occur automatically. So we don't have to work with the individual constituents of matter per se. We work with the larger organizational themes. We work to become soul-infused personalities by meditation and service, and study, of course, aligning with the soul, and bringing soul energy into our personality, brain, consciousness, the various vehicles, and then the light that is in all of these atoms will be drawn forth, will shine, will work cooperatively and more harmoniously, will coalesce. So we have to know at what level we should work. Now, if we were to go back trying to work with physical matter per se, unless you're a very specialized type of occultist whose province that is, it would not be the way to go. Our particular task is to align with the angel of the presence, know what that entity is, be able to focus our consciousness within the causal body, and to really be souls in incarnation, and be able to extract the consciousness from the personality per se. And this will help with the infusion of soul energy, eventually the infusion of triadal energy, and the rearrangement of all the tiny units which cannot be approached one by one, but have to be approached in kind of a gestalt, a larger organizational effort, which is based upon the presence of the soul in the personality consciousness and in the personality mechanism. So we work with the second aspect of divinity. We're no longer working specifically with the third aspect of divinity. It will respond automatically. So those are good thoughts, and of course, if we can develop the proportion, the sense of proportion and humility, which we rise by kneeling suggests, then we will banish the kinds of veils which have prevented us from seeing the truth. Thank you. And one more, did you say, Brett?
One more from Debo, saying, can you please also enlarge on your comment on the effect of Pluto at the time of attempted identification?
Ah, there they all are. Well, what Pluto, see, identification is an ongoing factor. What Pluto does at the second initiation is it really helps to destroy the hold which glamours have upon us, and it brings in a certain type of healing energy. It gets a lot of clutter out of the way. You know, we have so many perceptions which are very secondary and which we are all involved. And Pluto is like the scissors. It cuts the ties, and we no longer get so involved in those things. Now, from the second degree on, we have to be working on identification. So let's just say that Pluto destroys the obstacles to the vision of that with which we must identify. If we're all involved with a lot of secondary matters which are veils upon a deeper truth, a deeper understanding of the sameness of the things around us with ourselves, then we will be deluded. But Pluto cuts us away from those things because it is the Lord of Death. Pluto never destroys the consciousness. Pluto, in fact, will eliminate obstacles. It may be a painful elimination because we may be attached to those things. So all the way up to the fifth initiation, Pluto is at work. As a matter of fact, Pluto is the major planet ruling the base of the spine center, working at the fifth initiation. It's really quite amazing. And then you have the royal road completed from the base of the spine to the top of the head, from will to purpose completed, and it burns away all the obstacles that keep us from realizing ourselves as being. Every time we want to identify with a lesser thing, Pluto comes along and cuts the thread. It cuts it and prevents us from identifying with that lesser thing. So Pluto is a rejecting energy. Remember, I said neti neti, not this, not that. Pluto is that way. No, not this. No, not that. No, no, no. Until all of the secondary factors, which usually clutter our perception, clutter our understanding, are eliminated from the field, and we see reality as it is, and we become that reality. In other words, we identify as that reality. In every initiation up to the fifth, Pluto is active in different ways. DK tells us how it's very active before the first initiation with Vulcan, how it deglamorizes us at the second initiation, how the very first contact with the base of the spine, the Kundalini begins to rise with Pluto at the third initiation, and how we begin to destroy illusion, how the causal body is destroyed at the fourth initiation, and that will involve the death-dealing quality of Pluto and many other factors which destroy the causal body. But it is the destroyer of the personality and the destroyer of the egoic body. And finally, mastership itself, it rises all the way into the crown. The Kundalini rises into the crown, which is the center of purpose. And so you have Pluto at the bottom and Uranus at the top. And that kind of atomic energy, you might say, prevails at the fifth degree. And we finally really see clearly. It's called the revelation, and we see the way ahead. Okay, there's a bio or debo, but that's what I can say about that. Okay, are we good?
We have another comment from Alex.
Okay, Alex, yes.
Just to express gratitude. I always find this so valuable, prompting further reflection, insight, and inspired practice. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Alex. And you're busy inspiring a lot of people with your articles, so we all have to contribute what we have and lift the consciousness according to the light that is within us. We'll do our best, and you're certainly making a big contribution, and I appreciate that very much. Okay, and I'm just wondering, I saw Tuija there earlier. I know Olivia, Tuija, and I are sponsoring this glamour thing, so I just want to see if she's there. But maybe something happened, I don't know. Oh,
yes,
there she is.
I am here. I am
okay,
here.
Dear, go ahead. Yeah.
So what did you want to...
Oh, you had your hand up, unless I was mistaken.
No, yes, I had my hand up for the Syria discussion, so, but...
Okay, well, just mention it, whatever you want.
Well, what do I want to say?
It was a long time ago, I know.
Yes. It was about when we think about the world situation at the moment, and I was reflecting something about Master R, how he was, in my opinion, preparing already 300 years ago for the coming of the European Union. There are some stories how he was leaving, he had a ball or some dinner, and he left all of his guests because he suddenly was quiet, silent, and he got some message, and he said that he has to go to prepare something, and he left. So, and I have been thinking a lot about this. What does it mean, in which kind of body the master is, and what DK is giving the list for us. And do they count at this time? What does that really mean? But I am sure, because when we think about the situation in Middle East or Near East, and also that what was said then by DK when the country of Israel was established, that then the door of evil was not closed. And all of this situation between those neighboring tribes and nations, and how at this time it is so crucial. And I know that, for instance, in America it is very difficult for you to really realize in what kind of sword edge we are standing here in Europe, and the situation which is developing or is active there all the time. And again, that United Nations has its special emergency meeting because of the situation in Aleppo. But this is reflecting this karmic situation what are the key things for us as human beings? It is the humanity's own karma is played in this area, and that's why that if we think about what DK says about Jesus, that he has the Syrian body, it has to mean something that already long time ago was seen, that that this area is so crucial, and there are many writings now by those thinkers and those who has been following that situation, that and they are talking about the Third World War. And that's why it is that for Karen, so that for me this is the implication of this Syrian body, that it was seen already, that this something is going to happen there. And if someone is and has that body, it means that then they have the access. And when you studied about the war, wherever it has been, there has been also after the war the release of all kinds of stories that people have been seeing or feeling or have evidences how the inner the celestial forces were participating. So behind the scenes somewhere there, I'm sure that Master Jesus is very active.
It makes a lot of sense to me, and DK, in describing his work, talks about how extremely responsible he is, and how much responsible work he has on his shoulders. So, you know, the sixth ray is a very divisive ray in the lower part of its expression. And what is happening now is that those tendencies, which are Martian tendencies, are all coming to a head in the Middle East. And somehow he has to reconcile this triangle of faiths. And the battleground is spoken of as Syria. So I think, you know, as you say, seeing far ahead, he is now well positioned to do that. We don't know how he is working, and it will not happen immediately, but there is much danger that humanity could lose everything if this doesn't go properly and have to start again. So the masters put themselves where they need to be. Let's put it like that. Thank you, Tuija. It's you know, it's really well. You know, listen in. I think tomorrow either Tuija or I don't know which one, will be doing something again on Aleppo and Mosul and those areas where there is so much suffering and even starvation going on now in the heart of this very conflicted area where power plays seem to be the main thing and humanitarianism is just shoved to the side. But we'll work behind the scenes to try to bring relief. Okay.
Michael?
Yes, Brett.
Alex has another question. Not to be pedantic, but is Jesus in a physical body in Syria?
Yeah, well, he's a Chohan, and what they have is they can make physical bodies called Maya Varupas from the time of the third degree, and from the time of the fourth degree, but usually at the fifth degree, they have the ability to use the triadal permanent atoms to generate an actual physical body. It doesn't have lunar elementals ruling it or guiding it. It's just made out of a physical substance, mental, emotional, and etheric physical. And it is very physical and tangible, but appears and disappears according to their control of light atoms. So, you know, it's just as tangible as anything else, just as physical, but they have complete control about where it will appear, where it will disappear, and that is their Maya Varupa, and the Christ can be expected in his Maya Varupa, whatever that is, to be seen by all on the dense physical plane. So yes, physical, yes, but with the special condition that they can make them appear and disappear at will. I know it sounds strange, but this is what the Maya Varupa is, you know. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Well, I think we
have a
yes,
question
Yvonne?
from Yvonne.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the question is, does it have to eat or sleep?
Well, I think I think that the whole thing is generated by higher energies altogether. So, you know, they may go through the motions of eating or whatever, but oftentimes it's very interesting about how Master R would always disappear as a Count de Saint-Germain. He never ate with anyone else, you know. And they have the internal method of sustaining the presence of those atoms which together configure a physical body. I would say that there is no particular need to do that because the sustainment comes from above and is completely under their control. Most of us are busy absorbing energy from matter and substance and so forth. They don't need to do that. But you know, I'm not privy to all the details of it. This is my my sense of things. That given that it is generated from triadal levels altogether, and their consciousness is there, the sustainment of the physical organization comes from there as well, and is not subject to the usual laws of decay, degeneration, and so forth. Does not need to be sustained by material forces. So I would say, no, they don't, in the usual sense, need to eat and sleep in the usual sense. But you know, that this is my impression at the moment. You know, there's some people even now that try to live on breath or on ether. Some may succeed, others kill themselves in the process. It's a coming thing, and etheric sustainment of physical organization is not only possible but eventual. And certainly a Chohan, like the Master Jesus, you know, operating from the monadic plane and in the triad, has every ability to sustain this outer type of mechanism, which is very, very secondary to the center of their life. Okay, friends, well, I think, you know, time is passing, apparently, even though it doesn't exist, and maybe we should get into our meditation. Are we clear, Brett?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Excuse my occasional cough here. Let's go to the meditation itself. Now we'll, you know, the great heresy of separateness is the problem, and it comes from partial perception and the inability to see wholeness. We'll keep working with it because we're going to be working with the technique of the presence, and we're in that now, and the ability to dispel illusion. So only the intuition can dispel illusion, and so keep up with our work of hatred, repulsion, and separativeness for a while. It seems to be the fundamental thing. All of our problems come from the one great heresy, the heresy of separateness. Of course, we could really think about that. It's amazing, you know. It's all a problem in consciousness, and it's a problem because of the dwarfing of our consciousness and the inability to see all things not only as within the whole, but as the whole. So we will continue along these lines. All right. Ooh. 2 formulas. Wait a second. I think I may have... I think I've pulled in maybe the wrong meditation there. Just take a second here. And 2 formulas for the spelling of... There it is. Yep, I was upside down. Okay. Okay. Here we go. All right. So let us, here we are together, you know, some 30-something of us, and we don't need to necessarily know all the names. If we were working in smaller groups, we could. Let's have together an attunement with each other as soul-infusing personalities in the silence. Not 10 minutes, but a little bit of time, as in the silence we tune in with each other as cooperators. And we render ourselves, we offer ourselves as one instrument to be used for the clarification of human consciousness and realizing the age-old power of these inhibitory forces. We, with humility, sound out the protective formula. As we do so, we make the long arm cross, forehead, chest, left eye, right eye. The sign of the cross we make. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light, and from that point, I work, and from that point, I never move. And then, standing in the light together, and under the protection of this word of power, we're going to focus the dual light of matter and of mind the etheric and physical light and the mental light. We focus on the mental plane and the mental body and the group mental body. These two lights, the light of matter will give the necessary vitality, the light of mind, the ability to understand the implications of the glamour we are working with. And we meditate then on soul contact, and we enter into the recognition of soul light. And then we fuse the two lesser lights with soul light. We imagine this happening on the plane of mind. So the triple light now is focused as one on the plane of mind within the mental body of the group, and in each of our mental bodies accordingly. And then we say together, followed by the sacred word, the light is one, and in that light we shall see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. We ponder that. We're going to use the light which turns the darkness of glamour into day, the light of day, the light of the intuition, the greater light to be revealed. Then we use the formula and we say together, radiance are we and power. we stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. And thus, with the light, we work and turn the darkness into day. We're visualizing the great searchlight we have created. We turn it on, turn it upon the astral plane with these thoughts in mind. Seeing perhaps the effects which these glamours of hatred and separativeness have caused, understanding their undesirability, their danger, and we have the means of working with these veils upon reality. The great revelation comes from all the gifts of all the people, and everyone has a little bit of the larger will of God for our globe. And when we hate and when we are separative, we absolutely deprive ourselves of the fullness of the will of God, our planetary logos working out through the many, each one of whom carries something of that will. So our searchlight is ready, the triple beam, but we empower it by invoking the spiritual will, which comes ultimately from the monad, will, wisdom, and activity, through the atmic plane, through the jewel in the lotus, through the synthesis petals and the sacrifice petals, through the head center and base of the spine center found on the astral and etheric planes. Not my will, but thine be done. And we empower our beam of light with the spiritual will, saying, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And our goal is to dissipate these two glamours inevitably related, one of them really an illusion, of course, working its way into a glamour. So we're going to utter the words of power, working with these two glamours as one. And as we do that, we visualize the light penetrating into the glamour and producing its weakening and dissipation. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of hatred and separateness. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour. Now we will have 5 minutes of silence and intensity of purpose, and we will see the work proceeding. We have the factors of the appearance of the glamour, the quality of the glamour, and the life behind the glamour. We will witness the weakening and dissipation in the world of hatred and separativeness. And the day will come when, in reflection of the Buddhic plane, love and unity prevail upon the astral plane, and the mists, the miasmas, the veils, they will be lifted. They will be dissipated. So we withdraw our beam, we focus upon the mental plane, we turn the searchlight off, and we realize that incrementally, just a little work every time, gradually we wear away these glamours. Gradually they can no longer control the motivations and impulses of humanity. Gradually reality will reveal itself. And we will sound the Om together 3 times, realizing that this will have an effect on all 3 levels of humanity's personality. Thank you, friends, for your participation. Tomorrow we will have a broadcast, same time. Of course, the broadcasts are shorter than the webinars. These also have discussion about, the academics of the situation. We will have meditation for Aleppo and for Mosul and for Syria, Iraq in general, where, the preliminary battles are occurring that, if not handled wisely, can lead to a much wider world conflagration. And then Sunday, attracting money for hierarchical purposes. Then next week we will shift to the morning schedule. And we will let you know about any other programs that we will be having. Pre-full moon, full moon, exact full moon, and also the broadcasting coming up of the Sagittarius solar fire ritual, meditation. So some different things are coming up, and we definitely appreciate your presence. Thank you, and although we are working subjectively, it can be very powerful. People don't realize this, but we who have studied with Master DK, meditated with Master DK, served under his influence, we do realize it, and to the extent possible, we persist. So thank you, and we will get this up on Makara as soon as possible. And to tell your friends, if they have not been able to attend these Glamour webinars and other broadcasts because of the inconvenience of time, that they can participate with the videos that we will have ready. And that, of course, counts for something too, very definitely. So all the best. And
Michael.
Tuija? Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I forgot one thing what I was aiming to say earlier is about these triangles and triangle work, that we remember that how the Buddhas of activity can energize them and use them for protective purposes if needed. So I think that is also good for us to remember now in the times of these emergencies and unbalanced situation.
Very definitely. In the times when, if I can put it this way, the Armageddon is being fought, okay? But it has to be fought psychologically and mentally, and it cannot be fought physically. DK warns us about this. And the Buddhas of activity, who were planetary logoi in the previous solar system. Imagine the scope of these huge beings working with Sanat Kumara. We can create the vehicle for them to cooperate when emergencies arise, maybe even emergencies that we don't sense. I mean, how many of us sensed, or our fellow human beings sensed, that in 1917 the solar logos almost intervened in the First World War? We are not privy even to what all these emergencies may be, but we can provide the vehicle for the great beings from Shambhala to intervene as necessary. It's very serious business, so let's keep working together in meditation and in service and learning through study all about what we're really doing, and then maybe we can add our bit to the salvation of the situation so it doesn't degenerate into the horror that otherwise might happen. So thank you, Tuija and Olivia, and Will, and everybody, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow or whenever you can attend with us. All the best, and bye-bye for now.